With us now via the phone is one of the nation's top political writers, Mr. John Fund. He is the national affairs columnist for National Review magazine. And Mr. Fund, thanks so much for being with us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Well, John, Hurricane Sandy has left absolute devastation in New York, New Jersey, and many other New England and Mid-Atlantic states, mostly blue states. What kind of impact will the storm have on the 2012 presidential election?
Well, I think it certainly may impact early voting in some states, such as Virginia, but most of the other states you mentioned don't have early voting. They traditionally have people vote on the polling day. And with election a week away, I think most polling places, if not all, will be open and have electric power, and those who don't will probably have generators, and those who don't will probably have some other provision by which people don't have to use electronic voting machines. They'll vote on paper ballots that may delay the counting of the vote to some extent. But I really don't see enormous disruptions here because we were spared the storm long enough before the election so that we can have the cleanup.
Well, that's encouraging, but what about, what is the impact to, say, turnout? I mean, there are going to be a lot of folks who over the course of the next few weeks will be focusing on cleaning up and just trying to get, some sense of normalcy with their lives and maybe won't have the election, at the top of their mind come Election Tuesday. Could we see an impact to turnout?
Well, trust me, most Americans never have the election at the top of their to-do list. We just had the World Series. A lot of people were preoccupied with that. So I think that's an imponderable. What you say makes sense, that people are going to be consumed with their families and their daily lives and also the concerns of their relatives and neighbors. But we can't quantify that. That's an individual decision. I think it's safe to say voter turnout is not going to go up because of the storm. It'll go down in some imponderable way. But, it may affect both campaigns. There may be rural areas of West Virginia where people can't get through because of snow or don't want to vote because of the bad weather up in the mountains. On the other hand, there may be urban areas where there's flooding, where people, are still cleaning out their basements. So I don't think we can be certain that there'll be some kind of, I don't think we can be certain of what the effect would be.
Right. Well, do you think that the storm hurts or helps the candidates?
The storm will neither help nor hurt the candidates because I think they're both campaigning again. For example, Paul Ryan is coming to Minneapolis today, and I think Mitt Romney is in Florida. President Obama is doing what incumbents do best, which is looking presidential in the Situation Room of the White House. And again, I think the campaigning tends to try to drive up the vote of the base. And I think there's still plenty of time between now and Election Day for both candidates to do that.
All right. Well, considering the complications that could result at the polls and the fact that this is going to be a very close race, do you see lawsuits flying by either party? And does either candidate need to win by a landslide to avoid a long, protracted legal mess?
Well, that's a good question. I don't see the lawsuits as invoking God or the weather. I do see them perhaps invoking provisional ballots, confusion at the polls, double voting, potential voter fraud. For example, Ohio has a curious law. If you apply for an absentee ballot in Ohio and you get it in the mail, but you don't cast it, you don't send it back, and then you show up at the polling place on Election Day and say, I want to vote, they'll see that you're trying to vote twice, or at least have applied to vote once and now trying to vote another time. And so they will give you a provisional ballot, a temporary ballot, and they will wait to see if your absentee ballot shows up in the mail, which means you shouldn't be voting on Election Day. That process takes days. They cannot count those provisional votes for 10 days. So if Ohio is decided by less than 50,000 votes, and let's say the entire presidency rests on that, we may not know for 10 days because we have up to 50,000 ballots locked up, and we can't find out who they were voted for.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you. What are the chances that we might not know who our president is on November 7th?
I think it's about 10 to 15%, because I think that this election is close, and we have 10,000 lawyers watching it on both sides. So you no longer have to win with a margin of victory. You have to win with a margin beyond litigation. And as a result, if any state is close, there may be automatic recounts. Recounts can take from 1 to 4 days. So, again, we may not know for sure. And again, we have a precedent. In 2000, Al Gore initially conceded the race, and then he took it back. So ever since then, the general presumption has been no candidate should concede until he's absolutely certain he's lost. So if there's any doubt at all, I suspect both Barack Obama, the president, and Mitt Romney will hang tough and not concede. And as long as someone hasn't conceded, you can't really say the fat lady has sung, the election is over.
Now, some are saying that more blue states are up for play, including Minnesota, Maine, and Michigan. What is your take on that, and how will they go?
Well, I think the electoral map is expanding, and it's expanding in Romney's direction. Most people think that Florida, Virginia, and North Carolina are slipping away from Obama, while Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and maybe the one electoral vote in Maine that is up for grabs because they allocate their electoral votes differently by congressional district could be in play. Believe me, Paul Ryan would not be in Minneapolis today if they didn't have internal polling showing they might be able to win Minnesota.
Now, the Senate, do you see Republicans regaining control there?
Well, I think things looked a lot better for them 6 months ago. I think that it's a close-run thing. They now have threatened seats that they hold in places like Indiana that they didn't expect to be threatened. On the other hand, and also Massachusetts, which is now moving slightly in the Democratic direction. On the other hand, there have been a couple comebacks. Todd Akin in Missouri, who was given up for dead, may become this election year's Lazarus. He's only 2 points below Democratic incumbent Claire McCaskill. If the election were held today, I would say the Republicans would take narrow control. We might even have a 50-50 Senate, and that means Senate control will be up to which party has the vice presidency, and that could be either Joe Biden or Paul Ryan, breaking tie votes all the time for the next 2 years.
And if the election were held today, who would win? Would it go for Obama or Romney?
If the election were held today, it would be Romney, probably by about 2 points, maybe 3 points.
All right. Well, we'll keep watching. John Fund, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.